Hi everyone, my name is Mark Sheridan and I'm the president here at Hester Creek Estate Winery. A number of you are probably aware that we've been doing some videos with Chef Adair from Terroir and with our Director of Hospitality, Roger Gillespie, and our winemaker, Mark Hopley. Today we thought we'd do something a little different and actually bring you out into one of our new vineyards. This is a new property that we purchased a year ago. It's located literally about 1 kilometre from our estate, and we're physically actually planting the property today. So what we thought we'd do is take you through the process of, first of all, how do we decide what vineyards to choose, where to plant a vineyard, take you through the development process of how we develop a vineyard, and then also look at the vines and just give you a feel for what happens from the viticulture side of things. So this property, as I said, we just purchased a year ago, and a lot of planning goes into, first of all, choosing a property. Every grape variety is different. For example, a location that may be suitable for, let's say, Pinot Noir, may be very suitable for Pinot Noir, would probably not be suitable for a variety like Cabernet Sauvignon. So the first step is understanding what varieties are we looking at growing. That gives us an idea of what location, or for want to use a bigger term, terroir. Terroir is just a term. Let's not get caught up on terms, but terroir is just a term for the environment, the soil, the climate, the sunshine, all of those factors. So we look at a certain terroir for different varieties. Our desire on this property was, first of all, to have a location that was close to our estate, because that reflects our terroir on our property. We then wanted to plant Cabernet Sauvignon and we wanted to plant Merlot. So we were looking for, those varieties need heat. They're a later maturing variety. They ripen later than some of our early varieties like Chardonnay, for example. So you need sunshine, you need warmth to get those true right characters. So we needed a warmer location. So this property was chosen. We've actually, it has 1 acre of Merlot on it, and we have been receiving that Merlot from one of our growers for a number of years. So we had a good history of what the property could produce. So that gave us some real, a good insight as to the style of wine that we can make from those grapes. So it gives you a level of confidence. We were able to purchase the property, and then we sit down and we say, okay, how do we design the vineyard on that property? You may think a 12-acre property, it's very simple. You've got 2 varieties, divide it down the middle, plant 6 acres of each, and that makes it simple. That is not the way we do things. The way we do things is we dig soil pits like about 50 meters apart. So we completely gridded this property before all the posts are in. We dug soil pits every 50 meters, and we mapped the soil down to a depth of about 1.5 meters. And then that gives us like a jigsaw puzzle. If you think of it like a jigsaw puzzle, you're looking at the property on a piece of paper with all the soil pits, and you can see, this section over here has a particular type of soil. This corner of the vineyard has another type of soil. Obviously, we want to keep those soil types separate and make sub-blocks within our vineyard, because the more even the soil is, the more even the ripening is going to be. So we took the first step of mapping the soil and then dividing that up into sections. And that's then where we then decide which varieties we're going to put on which soil types. So that's step 1. And that process happens, well, that happened a year ago. So now that we've decided our different soil areas within the vineyard, our different subplots, we then put our irrigation so that we can irrigate those sections separately. So for example, as you can understand, a lighter soil may need less water but more frequently because the water moves through the soil quicker. A heavier soil will need water less often because it holds the water. So you want to be able to make sure that when you design irrigation, you can irrigate each of those separately. So a lot of thought goes into how we set up our irrigation. Next step is, what direction do we orientate our rows? Here, we fortunately that we had all the choices because our land is relatively flat. So in an ideal world, like we have fortunately in this situation, our row orientation is north-south. And the reason we like that north-south orientation is because then, as you can imagine, our rows are going in this direction here. As you can see, the sun, it's in the morning now, the sun will rise in the east and move across and set in the west. So each side of the row then will get even amounts of sunshine. In the morning, the sun is here, shining on this side of the row. In the afternoon, the sun will be shining here. So we get even amounts of sunshine on each side of the row. So therefore, our ripening on each side of the vine is uniform. The next thing we look at is, well, how wide do we have our rows? How far apart? In this case, we've chosen a 7-foot row between the rows. So this is where our equipment will drive down. We're 7 foot between the rows, and with 3 foot between vines within the row. And that again is based on ensuring that there's a formula that we use where we've got to make sure that if the rows were too close together, if the rows are very close together, the sunlight interception, one row can actually shade the next row. So you have to have them wide enough apart where the sun can still, when the sun is in a lower part of the sky later in the season, is still being able to shine on the one row without having another row shadowing it. So with grapevines, there are multiple clones of each variety. In this case, say let's talk about Cabernet Sauvignon. Multiple clones of Cabernet Sauvignon, and each of those clones have different characteristics, both in terms of the flavor that they give the wine, how they grow in a certain climate, a certain soil type. There's that terroir comment again. So we need to choose the clone that best suits our terroir and the style of wine that we're looking for. Once we've chosen that, we then need to talk about, or we need to look at the rootstock. So let me explain rootstocks. When we plant a vine now, these are the vines that we are literally planting right now. It's early May. It's actually just a beautiful May morning out here. For those of you maybe that have been to Hester Creek, I'll just add an aside here over my left shoulder. You can see our property, our estate property, and for those of you that have maybe been to Hester Creek, you can see a red roofed building there. That's actually our villa. So that gives you an idea of just how close we are to our estate. But we love springtime, and at this time of year, it's just gorgeous. But getting back to the vines, when we plant the vine, we actually have 2 vines here, and this is how we receive them from the nursery. So all of our vines have come from the United States. We order them a year in advance because they need to be grown in the nursery. So let me talk about this vine being actually 2 vines. Back many years ago, there used to just be 1 vine. If you had Cabernet Sauvignon, this would all be Cabernet Sauvignon. In mid to late 19th century, the European, mainly French wine industry was decimated by an insect called phylloxera. It's essentially, it's like an aphid. It's very small. It's about 1/30th of an inch long. It lives in the soil, and it attacks the root system of a vine, and it kind of like girdles the roots of the vine, slowly devigorates the vine and kills the vine. And it obviously lives in the soil. So then if equipment is moving from one vineyard to another and there's dirt on the equipment, that insect can be then transported and cause multiple infections. It absolutely decimated the vineyards, and so there was therefore a need to have a vine that was resistant to this insect called phylloxera. And the challenge was that the vines that were resistant to phylloxera did not make good grapevine or good vines that would produce quality wine. So here's a close-up of a vine that we've literally just planted this morning, and it really gives you, illustrates very clearly. Here is our rootstock that is in the soil. So this gives us the characteristics that we want of the vine in the soil, whether it be phylloxera resistant, more vigor, less vigor, more tolerant of certain nutrient levels. There is the rootstock. Here is the Cabernet Sauvignon. And here is where they're joined, or it's referred to as grafted together. That's where they're joined. So we want to make sure that obviously when we plant this, that the Cabernet Sauvignon, we call this, the technical term for this section of the vine, the grape variety that we want is called the scion. We want to make sure that the scion is not buried, because otherwise that roots will come out of there. And then we lose the effect of the resistance to whatever we're looking for in the rootstock. So here you can see the Cabernet Sauvignon, which is, as I said, we refer to as the scion. And here you can see the bud. That bud in a few weeks' time will shoot, or we call it burst, and that shoot will start growing, and we will train that up, and that will then become our actual Cabernet Sauvignon vine. So there's the shoot. There's actually another, there's the bud, excuse me. There's another bud in here. So we will have two shoots that come up. And that's when we have to really be looking after the vine to make sure that those shoots don't get broken off by the wind, don't get damaged in any way, because there are two shoots that will actually form our vine. So we're planting our vineyard, as I've said. It's now May of 2020. We have, it seems like, well, the work's done. Well, the first part of the work is done. We now have 3 years of bringing these vines, training them, getting them up onto the wire. It will be 3 full years before we get our first crop. So we will grow for the 2020 season. They will then grow for the 2021 season, and then they'll grow for the 2022 season. So at the end of the 2022 season, we will get our first grapes, our first crop from this new vineyard. And that first crop will generally be around about, let's say, 1/3 of full production. In year 4, 2023, they will be their second crop. It'll be 2/3 of full production. And then in 2024, they're in full production for the remainder of their lives. So you can see the wine industry is there's a big lag phase. Our first crop being in 2022, the wine will then probably be released in 2024, maybe 25. So we're 5 years away from these vines producing or having wine in the marketplace. That is why the planning of developing a vineyard is really critical, because it's not a crop that we can change every year. We have one chance to get it right, and that's why the planning stage has to be so well thought through to ensure that at the end of the day, we are getting the absolute desired quality that we're looking for. So I hope that's given you a little bit of insight into another part of the wine industry. We are very passionate about viticulture. A large part of the resultant wine quality starts here in the vineyard, and so we wanted to take the opportunity, given that we're planting a vineyard, to really show you this. And maybe we'll do a video in another year and another year after that, and show you how these vines are developing and progressing. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I did want to really take the opportunity to thank all of our loyal customers during these challenging times. We've had such great support from you, and we very much appreciate that. And from all of us at Hester Creek, thank you. And we look forward to seeing you soon as we come out of these challenging times, to see you at our estate and welcoming you and sharing a glass of Hester Creek wine. Thank you.